Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Dunker Spot. We are part of the Basketball News Podcast umbrella. I am your host, Nekias Duncan, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Steve Jones Jr. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing well, doing great. Excited to be here. A little midweek action for the pod. For all the dunkers out there, salute to you. Continue to embrace your bounce. Big week for you, Nekias. Big week for you, sir.
How so?
I think the Aces won at some point. You put out a roaming the baseline on basketballnews.com. Great plug, highlighting the WNBA. You got a new comfortable hoodie. I think you appeared on 97 pods this week. And on top of that, I think you predicted all 4 of the play-in games that occurred. You correctly predicted the winners, correct?
I did get the 4, yeah.
All right, so let's get that clap going for you, man. Let's get that clap for him.
I appreciate the shout out, the hat tip for the picks. It has been an incredibly busy week. Shout out to all the podcasts that had me on their platforms. I'm not going to try to list them all because I feel like I'll forget one and I'm going to feel bad since it's going to be like in the podcast feed and I can't correct into the next one. So thank everyone for having me on. The hoodie is fantastic. Shout out to the fantastic women over at Spinsters.
Also, you can't name all the pods because you were on like 19 of them. We just recorded on Sunday. Every 2 seconds it was hi, hello.
Yeah, like I at one point I quote tweeted 2 back to back, and I was like, you know what, Nekias, you might need to slow down a little bit. This might be.
Nah, never slow down. That's the fun in it. But there's one thing I'd like to point out. A couple things actually.
Okay.
Just notice this. It was funny to me. I'm gonna share it with the audience.
All right.
So when was the All Awards show that we had?
That was what, a week and a half ago with Chris Herron.
Okay, so you went ahead. You named Trae Young to your All NBA team.
Yes.
Proudly.
Yes.
Stood up. Well,
I don't know about all that, but I did have him on my third team. Yes.
Immediately found Kendrick Perkins as your main tag team partner.
Yeah.
And then let's fast forward to today. We're recording on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Nekias has been calling for the Bucks to win the East all season long.
This is true. Early on the bandwagon.
Leader of that train, front row seats. Charles Barkley has guaranteed that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to win and come out of the East. That is your ally. How do you feel?
I am going to be honest with you. I don't feel super great about either at this point. I saw the Barkley thing and I was like, you know what? No, like my immediate thought was you weren't with me shooting in the gym. Like you weren't here. Come on, man. No. Like, let me have this. Let me in particular have this. I have been banging the Bucks drum in the face of all kinds of stuff this year.
And he took that drum. So if that drum does indeed beat loud, you are sharing that spotlight with Chuck. And that makes me giggle inside.
It's a cruel twist of irony, considering waves wildly at my timeline for like the last 5 years. But you know what? We move. It's fine. It's fine. I will just sleep a little worse, but still reasonably well at night, knowing that I was here first. So if Milwaukee does come through, make it out of the East, then I'll just mute my television and give myself a silent fist pump, tweet about it, maybe even gloat about it on this here podcast. We'll see how it goes.
There's no way you're going to do that if the Bucks do come out the East. It's going to be 19 tweets in about 7 seconds. I'm sure the drafts are already created, at least 4 of them.
Not yet. Like, I like to do it fresh.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. No disrespect. Also, please don't disrespect the Grit and Grind on the timeline.
Come on.
Thank you.
It was not meant as disrespect. I was just giving a quick shout to Houston. Giving a quick shout to Memphis for the play-in win. Like it was a solid victory.
Grit featuring Grind infuriated me.
Why? Why did that infuriate you?
I'm in a good mood.
Okay. Fair enough. While we're on the play-in, Let's actually, before we even get to the play-in, award finalists were announced earlier tonight. No real surprises outside of a couple. Just to go over those very briefly. The Coach of the Year finalists were Quinn Snyder, Tom Thibodeau, and Monty Williams for Utah, New York, and Phoenix, respectively. For Most Improved Players, Jeremy Grant, Michael Porter Jr., and Julius Randle. For Rookie of the Year is the big three of LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and Tyrese Halliburton. For the Defensive Player of the Year, we got Rudy Gobert, Draymond Green, and Ben Simmons. For MVP, it was Steph, Embiid, and Jokic. And for Sixth Man, we got Jordan Clarkson, Joe Ingles, and Derrick Rose. What were your initial thoughts when those names were announced?
Well, I'm horrible at victory laps, but if you did listen to the Dunker Spot, we did knock most of these out of the park. So just going to throw that out there. Go ahead and rewind that one in your podcast libraries. For me, it's good to see Michael Porter Jr. actually got the credit for his improvement. He was actually up there. I think we know who it's probably going to lean to, but it's good to see he got that nod. The only other one for me was Draymond Green. It's not a surprise, like he's not capable of doing that. It's just, I'm not sure if most people were going to give it to him. It's good to see they did. And I owe that man an apology. I had Bam in there instead of Draymond. And after that game he played against the Lakers, I'm just going to formally apologize and never do that again.
One of many defensive masterclasses that he's had in his career, but like that was one of my favorite defensive games from him. Like the work he did on Anthony Davis was incredible, particularly in the first half. And that does come with the very slight caveat that Anthony Davis was working in a bit of a phone booth because Andre Drummond was also sharing the floor with him and just the positioning of the offense there. But you can't deny that. What's the face for?
How did Andre Drummond catch a straight already? We haven't even gotten into that game yet. We're talking about Draymond's performance. Here you come off the top rope to just double drop kick.
It's not.
Or Andre Drummond's just outside watching. You just kicked him in the face.
I mean, I guess technically he would be like out of bounds, slightly behind the basket, since that's where he's placed on a lot of those post-ups for AD. But sue me for trying to add some context to the first half performance. Draymond still deserves a multitude, like he deserves a multitude of credit there. That's just add some context. No slander, no drop kicks, no flying elbows, nothing of the sort. Just some added context to the first half. That's all. At any rate, Draymond was fantastic. Great man defense. Off the ball, he was tremendous. Playing in the gap and pick and roll, like he still remains. He might just be the best at it, playing between two. Just a fantastic defensive game. Other end of the floor is a whole nother story, but we're talking about Defensive Player of the Year right now. He absolutely deserves having that top 3 recognition. Just like you, I also had Bam as my third, but Draymond probably would have been fourth for me anyway, so it's not anything egregious. I guess I shouldn't be surprised in hindsight that Rose got the third spot. I was expecting a guy like Jalen Brunson to get a little bit more love for what he did in Dallas, but Rose did also have a very productive season for the New York Knicks off the bench. A lot of closing reps for him at point guard, made some big plays down the stretch. So I definitely get the nod there. Like I had TJ McConnell on my list as well because I have my inherent 2 players on the same team can't be nominated for 6-man thing. So like I didn't realistically expect TJ McConnell to end up in the top 3. So that's just kind of whatever.
Are you going to apologize to Utah now or later?
I don't think I have anything to apologize to Utah for. I'm going to be honest with you.
You have infuriated at least 7% of Jazz Twitter by saying that Clarkson and Ingles shouldn't both get recognition. And they're going to come after you, buddy. And I'm letting you know I'm tapping out.
Well, thanks for leaving me out the drop. But no, like I don't think I'm not coming at it from a disrespectful place. Like numerically, I mean, the award is called 6-Man of the Year. You cannot have 2 6-men. One of those 2 players are the 7th. I personally believe that Joe Ingles has been better than Jordan Clarkson. So therefore, Joe Ingles is my 6-Man of the Year candidate for Utah. That does not mean Jordan Clarkson is bad. That does not mean he has not been a productive player off the bench. Heck, just based on what we know about awards voters and how the award goes, he's going to win the thing, honestly. You talk about having drafts ready. I don't have a draft ready, but I know I'm going to be a little bit upset when he wins it over Ingles because I think Ingles has been better. So, like, I'm not purposely disrespecting him, and I also don't even anticipate this even mattering because I think he's going to win the award. But yeah, you can't have two. Like I said the same thing last year. Like if Montrezl Harrell is your sixth man of the year for the Clippers, like Lou Williams shouldn't also be in the top three. Like one of those guys is seventh. That's just how numbers work. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's how numbers work, but they're both great guys off the bench. Let them get some recognition. It's just, who was good off the bench. And no, we should not change it to reserve player of the year.
No, let's give Chris Walter the shout out. Like let's change the name of the award to reserve of the year.
That's a mad lame name.
Sixth man of the year?
It's a vibe.
Is it a vibe or are we just used to it?
Both.
Ah, come on. Get out of here. Call it reserve of the year, and then I don't care. You could have three players from the Utah Jazz at that point if that's what it takes. Well,
Ingles started for the last month. Seems like an odd push.
Joe Ingles is good enough to fit in an elite starting lineup and has a versatile enough game to fit in between starters. I'm not about to penalize him for being more malleable.
All right. So you want it to be Joe Win.
See, that's exactly what you get. That is precisely what you
Joe Wingles.
That is what you get. No. I'm so glad that you couldn't even get that out. You knew it was ridiculous the second you started that pun and you kept trying. That's precisely what you get. I'm glad
shot fake. You got to get it up sometimes.
I'm glad we had that moment. That was beautiful. Did you have any other award thoughts?
No, I don't. Let's talk about some playing basketball.
All right, let's start with the games from Wednesday. The headliner, of course, was Lakers Warriors, a 103-100 victory for the Lakers. LeBron James with a triple-double. Anthony Davis after a slow start. Again, Draymond Green played him very well defensively. Finishes with 25 and 12. Your initial thoughts from that game?
What I thought it was a great game. Just a classic game. It seems like hyperbole, but that was just two teams who wanted it going back and forth. And I didn't find fault with either of them. You know, I felt like both teams did what they were supposed to do. The Warriors had a really good game plan defensively, and I thought offensively they did just enough to get things going. I thought the Lakers, I know the Lakers offense gave you a headache in the first half, but their defense kept them hanging around. And that's kind of what they do. Just, hey, we're going to keep defending and hope this works out. But we saw some really masterful performances. Steph Curry lost his mind several times. LeBron was able to find it, you know, kind of be a creator and then able to score on the post a few times, open some things up. Alex Caruso, his defense, especially later in the game, he was really good. Wesley Matthews flipped the game just by coming in, defending with passion, being active. Anthony Davis had a really tough time against Draymond, but from that play where I think it was Toscano Anderson, they switched Toscano Anderson onto him. He took him right to the post, caught it, got a foul and an and one. He looked like a different guy. And if nothing has been more clear during this Lakers late run, he has to have that mindset. He has to have the aggression. Even if he's struggling, he has to go out there and take it. In the first half, Draymond was playing really well, but Anthony Davis also was kind of quiet. And the Lakers can't have that. That's just not going to work. They need defense. They need AD. So I thought that was great. And then Draymond's defense, man, not just one-on-one, not just weak side defense, pick and roll as far as being able to be in a drop, stunt at a ball handler, get back to your man, do it again, stay in the passing lane. Like if you want to learn about what you should do defensively, go watch that game. Like it's going to fall in the cracks of history, but that was a really, really, really good performance from him in all facets defensively.
Again, just an absolute masterclass from him. Just going back to the Anthony Davis point for a moment, I feel like that's kind of the one knock against him offensively is that he does kind of lean on that jumper a lot. And when it's rolling, like it was during last postseason, where it didn't feel like he could miss a mid-range shot at all, then there's just absolutely nothing you can do with him. Like it doesn't, him having the three-point shot as well is just a bonus. But if the mid-range game is going like it was last postseason, there's nothing you can do because he just sprinkles that over you whenever he wants to because of the high release point. in the way that it's not just a pick and pop jumper. He can set you up with a face up, a jab, can get it off the bounce, flow into some pull-ups, and it's there. And then also he can get to the rim in a dribble. And at that point, he lives at the line. He lives in the intermediate area. There, you can't switch smaller guys on. He'll mash you. Get a big guy on, he'll blow right past you. And then there's just nothing you can do there. In the first half of that game, Draymond played him well, but he was settling for that jumper quite a bit. And for a team that I would say struggles to generate like great looks a lot just because of the lack of spacing, like you can't also have bad process on top of that. And I think there was a lot of bad process from Anthony Davis. Again, Draymond Green forced him into that quite a bit, but you can't have Anthony Davis letting you off. Like he can't let you off the hook that way either. But great for him. One thing that you pointed out during the game was it did not seem like the Lakers were hunting Steph at all until very late in that game. And that was odd. And I think I know I had the tweet queued up as a draft. I can't even remember if I actually sent it. But comes with like 140, 150 left in the fourth quarter. LeBron goes after Steph twice in a pick and roll. They gets downhill. They end up generating a good look. I was like, It only took 46 minutes, but the Lakers have finally started seeking out Steph Curry in pick and roll, just attacking those like hedge and recover sequences and getting downhill. Like that's such low hanging fruit for them. And that should also kind of scare the rest of the West, because at the end of the day, the Lakers, as wonky as their offense has been all year long, they always have two built-in options late in games. They can go LeBron with a point guard, whoever it is, or they can go LeBron AD. And if it's LeBron the point guard, unless your point guard is like DeJounte Murray, and he's not on any of these teams that are going to be in the postseason, just from like a size perspective, obviously. But like, unless it's someone like that, there's going to be a pick your poison element of it. Like you can't just switch that and then live with it or send help elsewhere. You can send help elsewhere, but it just puts your defense in rotation and you're just kind of stuck there. So it was nice to finally see that late. And then just the shot from LeBron, that deep three was fantastic. The post-game commentary was hilarious. The Twitter reaction to the post-game commentary was even more hilarious. That was one of the more fun nights I've had reading tweets and catching memes all season long. LeBron dropping the line like he saw 3 rims out there, so he just aimed for the middle one. I'm just like, that's chef's kiss. That is peak. Great job. Like CJ McCollum called LeBron out during the game, called him actor of the year. It's, oh man, that was not only a fun game to watch, it was a fun game to experience with everyone.
No, the fans won, and that was big. And you just like LeBron. Side note, is LeBron just going to name everyone but Jokic the MVP?
I'm glad you said that.
Because I feel like he did the thing with Steph, and that's fine. And then in the postgame, I feel like I remember him saying Chris Paul has been having an MVP season, which is also fine because, of course, he's supposed to say that. But that's also 2 people that's not Jokic. So I'm curious, just curious there.
Yeah, and like I would add that LeBron and Chris Paul also have a relationship, so that I would imagine that also plays a part in it. But like, yeah, even during the whole, let's rewind. When LeBron called Steph the MVP, I also made a tweet about this. I was like, this is the best stat head promo I've ever heard, because LeBron not only called Steph the MVP, he just listed off this laundry list of stats that Steph had, like the amount of 40-point games he's had, the amount of 30-point halves he's had, and preseason projections and all that. I'm just like, this is incredible. This is incredible. Like LeBron already has like photographic memory anyway. Like, I'm glad that he's like roamed the timeline and saw a couple of StatViews tweets and just dropped in a presser. Like, this is fantastic content. And like, he goes through all this around Steph, and like, the case makes sense. Like, I still think Jokic is far and away the MVP, but the case makes sense in itself. But towards the end of that, he said something along the lines of like, I know Steph isn't going to win it, but because, well, that's a whole nother conversation. And I was like, it's kind of like the Drewski thing. What do you mean by that?
You fell for the bait. It was a jab step. And you moved.
Like, I just found that part interesting. I was like, that's another conversation after like 6 minutes of Steph stats. Like at that point, just say whatever you had in mind. Like it's fine.
What was the better meme? LeBron on the floor with the eyes, or Steph on the bench nodding his head?
I think the Steph one was better, honestly. Yeah, I would just go with the Steph one. Like I like that. I feel you're gonna get more utility out of that one. Like the other one's poking fun of LeBron, that's cool, but like there's no long-term usage of that. I don't feel like the Steph thing you could just use anytime you want to.
Nah, I feel you there. Man, that was a great game. Playing that, I mean, the NBA couldn't have dreamed of a better scenario for the play-in than those two playing and getting that game. Or it could have just been a lot of whatever happened in the Eastern Conference over the past few evenings.
Yeah, that's just kind of, and we'll touch on the East very briefly. I mean, we'll touch on them very shortly, but first we'll stay in the West. Memphis, San Antonio was a tale of two quarters to start because Memphis absolutely jumped on them. 38-19 at the end of the first quarter, if I remember correctly. And then Memphis forgot how to play basketball for like 6 minutes, which was weird. And then it was a 2-point game, and it was just kind of a back and forth battle from there. But quick shout out to JV, who just absolutely masked whoever was defending him all game long. Dylan Brooks had himself a game. He was everywhere. There was some good, there was some bad, but like the amount of work that he put in defensively was incredible. I think he deserves a genuine head nod for that. I did not.
Before you continue, have we seen a quicker turnaround reputation-wise defensively than Dylan Brooks? And that's not to say he hasn't been able to do it or hasn't done it, but if you look at the last 3-4-ish weeks, it's kind of been there like every night. Like I noticed, I was like, man, they really make Dylan Brooks guard everyone. And then I was like, it's kind of working. And it's like, oh, I get it now. Like, I feel like there's been a shift.
Yeah, he's seen much better. Like even going to not the playing, I guess last game of the regular season, where he's just chasing Steph all over the place and not looking completely out of place doing it. That's obviously a difficult assignment. But like Dylan Brooks has been pretty good defensively all year long. It has been better as of late, but even just thinking about the types of players that Dylan Brooks is good at defending, like you would think it's more of your wing types. Maybe some of your guys that you have to chase over screens, but it's like it's mostly your wings and those kind of initiators. So for him to do that against a guy like Steph, who gives you like the pick and roll creation, but also a guy that moves off the ball the way he does, just the multitude of roles that you have to fill to defend a guy like that. And for him to not only not look out of place, but look pretty good is a testament to how much he's improved throughout the season, how much Memphis trusts him. Like, I definitely think he deserves props. Now, to that point, the fouls are just the fouls. Like, as good as he's been on some possessions, like, you also need to be able to count on your top wing defender to be on the court. I think the stat was that he's led the NBA in fouls last 2 seasons. That's not typically what you want. And I would imagine that also points to him being a little bit overtasked. Like, it's good that he takes on that responsibility and holds his own. But it's similar to the conversation I had a few pods ago about Utah. Royce O'Neal is a very good defender. If Royce O'Neal is your best defender, then it just kind of makes you want a little bit more. And to that point, like, Dylan Brooks is a good defender. Again, can fill a multitude of roles for you. If Dylan Brooks is your best perimeter option, at least in the starting lineup, then that's a bit of a problem, especially once you factor in like the foul trouble they can get in, because he does get very aggressive. He does want to make sure you know that he's there, make you feel you, all those cliches. So that's going to be something for Memphis to look at long term, I feel. But for right now, he absolutely deserves credit for the work that he's done.
I thought he was really good on DeRozan as far as never letting him get comfortable. You know, DeMar is a player who is known for getting to his spot, rising up, and finding a way to do that no matter the pressure. I thought the Spurs spammed a little bit too much high pick and roll, where, I mean, it was Brooks was just right next to him. DeMar was outside the 3-point line, so Brooks had time to recover, and Valanciunas stayed in front, and they kept spamming it, and it was like, get him closer, get him to the elbow, you know, give him a different shot to get to two dribbles in the pull up.
Right.
But you know, Brooks did a great job, and Valanciunas did a really good job of being active. You know, anytime DeMar looked like he was turning the corner, get to his floater, he was there to contest. So salute to them for the defense. What'd you think of Ja Morant's performance in this playing game?
It was fine. It's kind of where I land on it. Like later in the pick and rolls with him and JB were interesting because San Antonio was predictably trying to go under on him once the pick arrived. I think they, especially later, like DeJounte Murray just kind of getting in his airspace. The fact that he was able to create separation anyway just kind of speaks to the talent, the speed that he has. And he would get to his spots, and then it was a little bit of a question mark. It's a wild attempt at the rim. It's a floater that kind of felt a bit rushed, and like he needs something consistent. It's great that he can get to the spot, but he also needs to be confident in whatever he decides to do once he gets to that spot. Because I mean, we've joked about it on the pod before with Memphis being floater city, but like there were some spots in that game where I felt like Ja just didn't look comfortable. Like the speed was there, the mental processing was there. Like, okay, I'm gonna use this move to get this guy into the screen, gonna snake or whatever, get to the spot. And then once he got to the spot, then it was a little bit of indecision. And I worry about that. I especially worry about that against Golden State. Because I feel like if you get to a point to where Golden State wants to downsize and you're running pick and rolls at Draymond Green, for instance, if that's what you want to do, like Draymond is absolutely going to bait you into what you don't want to do. So I worry about what that's going to look like as we look at that playing game on Friday. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more on Friday as well, just as a quick spoiler. But
what?
Yeah, we are entering the Twitter space world, which I think is going to be fun. We'll be chopping it up. What are you looking surprised for?
What's the Twitter space?
We have reached the old man portion of the pod. This is fantastic content.
34 years old, man. What do you want me to do?
I would like for you to open the Twitter app on your phone and then click on the little thing towards the top of the page. You will see a purple icon. You click on that. That's how you would start your space. And it's it's Twitter Clubhouse is what it basically is.
My phone didn't recognize my face. I think it's the headphones. What did you think of Memphis's bench? Because my concern is it feels like those guys aren't getting a lot of run. I feel like they don't know which combination to go with. And it feels odd because that's a big part of what got them to this point. And it just kind of feels like none of them are really in rhythm, except for one player. That would be Desmond Main.
I hate you got to set that up. But anyway, my first thought whenever anyone brings up Memphis's bench is please play the Anthony Melton a little bit more. I would like for that to happen. But anyway, in terms of the bench, it's a bit of a I wish they staggered a little bit better with the bench. Because the issue with Memphis's bench is that they just seem to be a genuine creator short with someone that actually has like some score equity, at least on the perimeter. Because I mean, like, you think of Tyus Jones, like he get to a spot, he's gonna get to your floater, but like teams don't fear him as a scorer. Like he's not bending your defense. He's able to take advantage of He's able to capitalize on the advantage that's created for him. I feel like that's a lot of what Memphis's bench is. A lot of guys that know how to finish plays for you. Like Brandon Clark is very good at like roaming, filling space, roaming. He'll get to that floater and just roam around the rim. Xavier Tillman can finish some possessions for you. And you go on and you go on. But like if Ja's off the floor and the reps do go to a Tyus Jones or whoever, then it gets a little bit iffy in terms of the creation. And so I feel that that's more of a team building issue more than anything. Like this is why Memphis is in the bracket that they're in right now. because they don't have a whole lot of individual shot creation that you can trust anyway.
That's interesting. Also, very interesting. Brandon Clark looked like Brandon Park parked on the bench over there.
That hurts. I'm not even gonna have a soft spot in my heart for Brandon Clark. We don't have to do that.
He's good, but the pun was there. I'm sorry.
This is true. Why is DeMar always bad in like game ones of playoff games or playoff adjacent games? What's the deal with that?
I don't know. I saw a stat from you in regards to that, and I feel like it's just a really weird coincidence. But it's unfortunate because he's been really good this year, and it just like I feel like yesterday was like one of the worst games he's had all season. I feel like.
Yeah, and like I agree that it's probably coincidental, but when you have a coincidence that extends multiple years, at a certain point, it's just like, what's happening? Like, you can't have a coincidence like 6 or 7 years in a row, can you?
I mean, these things happen, but I don't think you should call him DeMar DeBroken.
Yeah, all right. Let's move to. We can go briefly on this one because it's gonna transition nicely into the actual playoff series previews. Washington, Indiana. Why?
Indiana Pacers. They were the racers racing to Cancun. It was just I was hoping for Fun Indiana to show up, and they didn't. And Washington just kind of did that thing where, hey, our defense is going to be good enough, and we're going to run in transition and score a bunch, and Russ is going to attack. And here comes Bradley Beal and Robin Lopez post hooks, and now we're up big. But salute to the Wizards, honestly, to be able to have that moment with where they were earlier this season happen. Indiana just did not have that same fight, which is weird because they punched Charlotte in the mouth, and then Washington punched them in the mouth, and it felt like the same game happened like twice.
It was very, I guess the issue with Indy, like, where's the rim protection? And like, if you don't have rim protection against Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, like, you're already at a disadvantage.
Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, Raul Neto came off a stagger, curled, took one dribble, and shot an uncontested floater.
Yeah, the pick and roll defense was very bad for Indiana. Very bad. Like,
I think you misspelled defense.
Wow. That's a good shot. that's a good shot. But yeah, like the pick and roll defense for Indiana just wasn't there at all. Like, you already didn't really have the rim protection if you have Sabonis at the 5. And then on top of that, like, where were the helpers? Like, the nail help kind of wasn't there on like those wing pick and rolls. You didn't really get anything from the back line, and it was just easy. And then you get some pick and rolls where Washington clears the side, and then it's just good luck with Sabonis trying to navigate that. And it was very disappointing. Like, the half court defense was awful. To your point again, when Washington was able to get into transition, like, good freaking luck. It did frustrate me on a couple of possessions watching Washington get out and run. There was one particular play, like Daniel Gafford gets this swat. I can't remember who he blocked, but he swats this guy. He hightails it down the floor. And I'm just expecting Russ to hit him on the lob. And instead, Russ goes to Bradley Beal in the corner for a 3, which is still a good shot, and Beal misses it. I'm just like, you know what? I really feel bad for Daniel Gafford. Like, I felt old. I'm just like yelling, reward the big, feed the big. Like, reward the big for making the shot and run the floor. Like, I feel like that's a tenet of basketball. Like, I don't know. That was annoying. There was also a funny play in the first half where Ish Smith comes off a pick and roll, and like nobody's defending him because Indiana, that was just the game plan for them. And then he passes up this 3 to hit Davis Bertans in the corner for a 3, and he misses that one too. And I'm just like, guys, I know it's easy, but please.
I think my favorite part of this podcast is watching you just slowly dip your toe into old basketball man like thoughts. Like, you're getting there, and I'm going to help the process.
Yeah, like once I brought up entry passing a couple pods ago, I was like, oh man, we were really getting into it.
A wrap. But shout out to Daniel Gafford. He was really good in that game.
He was.
Blocks. He's been good the whole time in Washington. And then, Rui Hachimidi.
Okay.
Shout out at Don Knock. That was his.
He still gets the same reaction. Okay.
We're going to have some fun today. Come on.
We are going to have some fun today. I don't have anything else to add on this game. Like, Indiana's offseason is going to be very, 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 very interesting. I'm excited to watch Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal face off against Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, if you're just going to go for the star power angle. And from there, we can transition into Philadelphia and Washington. Philadelphia won that regular season series, swept it 3-0. A couple of those games were early in the season, so don't know how much stock you want to put into that. It's hard to put stock in the regular season meetings anyway, but when they happen that early, then you definitely take it with a grain of salt. Washington is a different team than what they were. So is Philly. I have a few questions for you, but I want to start here. I think this is going to help determine if Philadelphia is going to continue to have the success that they did against Washington in the postseason. How much faith do you have in Ben Simmons finding those pockets in the half court?
Which ones? Just in general?
Just in general, being effective there, carving out space, hanging around a dunker spot, if it's screening, if it's setting, off ball screens, like where's your comfort level there? Because we talked about it a few pods ago.
Oh, my comfort level's high, especially in this series. There's just going to be too many opportunities, possession-wise. And the Wizards, while better defensively, will still give things up. So I think he'll have enough room to operate as far as driving and attacking, pick and roll, get his handoffs going, get the dunker spot, cut on the weak side. I think he'll be able to do what he does pretty well. And it's probably going to be a lower pressure environment for most of the games, I would say. So I have faith in Ben Simmons being able to show it off this series. He needs to, because he's going to have to build on it. But I'm not too concerned.
I guess just stay with Ben. Who does Washington put on Ben Simmons? Because they went 3 guard today, if I remember. Like, they went Westbrook and Neto and Beal. You had Rui and you had Alex Len. Like, I would imagine they go Rui on Tobias Harris. So who do you insert into the starting lineup to add some size there?
And they might not. They might try not to. You never know with the Wizards. They just kind of do stuff.
Do you think they go like Russ on Simmons? I feel like that's something Russ would want to do, but I don't know how.
They could. I mean, you can't. I mean, I say you can't, but I feel like every time I've watched the Wizards, Raul Neto has been guarding someone that I didn't think he should be guarding. I would guess Russ to start. Be my guess.
All right. Russ on Simmons, I guess. Neto on Seth Curry.
We put Beal on.
Beal on Danny Green, I guess. And then Rui on Tobias, and Alex Len gets the Joel Embiid punching bag assignment. Well, I guess that's kind of rude. I do anticipate Embiid winning that matchup handily, but like Alex Len has also been pretty good in Washington. And like he kind of had Domantas Sabonis calling for help early in this play-in game, which was not something that I expected. But yeah, I think is
this a Duncan thing that y'all do talking about Sabonis?
It's not. Like, I felt kind of bad after I sent that tweet about Sabonis kind of getting locked up. I was like, oh no, I hope I'm not leading into the other lane, because like I don't really have bad thoughts about Sabonis at all. Like, I think he's very good, but that was just kind of startling to see. Like, I figured he would be a guy that kind of sets the tone there, and he just could not do it.
Just real quick, did a little bit of research. Russell Westbrook did guard Ben Simmons. I think that allowed him to help on the weak side, which is either a really good thing or a really bad thing. Just depends on the play. So we'll see how that goes. But I wouldn't be surprised to do that. It's just gonna be interesting to see that size, that matchup. I would like this series more for the Wizards if they had a stronger base defensively. Like, I just don't know if they can consistently do the things to bother Embiid enough to really put pressure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I'm curious as to what the double teams are going to look like against Embiid, because I do think if you're going to stay small or go like 3 guard like Washington did, I guess one of the benefits is that you can send the double quicker, and you have a guy that could probably more effectively bother Embiid's dribble on those doubles if you're sending that help over. But like also, man, there's such a size deficit elsewhere. And again, if you have Russell off ball, it's such a mystery box with Russ off the ball.
It's just a mystery box for the Wizards in general. Like, even though they've gotten a lot better, more activity, I think more game plan elements, so they've been able to focus more. But you still have the issues of where they'll just kind of do Wizards things sometimes. Like, even in the Pacers game, there was like a dribble handoff. Russ went with the guy. The other guy was chasing, and then Brogdon was open for a jumper. And it was like, that's odd. Y'all been doing really good. So that's where my concern lies in. Well, honestly, can they bother Tobias Harris? Because I feel like that's kind of a little bit of the secret sauce to get into the Sixers. Can you affect what Tobias is doing? Can you make it tough on him and try and get some more possessions going?
Yeah, and to that point, just tracking the regular season series, take whatever grains of salt that you need. Like Tobias did only average around 14 points during the regular season series, didn't shoot particularly well. 44, 27, 67 split, didn't get to the free throw line a ton. So kind of, more salt on the free throw numbers, but he wasn't great. And Philadelphia won those games anyway. So I would just offer this up, which I'm sure would get an eye roll for you. If Washington does want to add a little bit more size to the starting lineup and just want to add another wing defender in general, like, please bring Isaac Bonga back into the rotation. Like, why?
Let me check his age real quick. Give me 1 second.
What are you like? I just, if you want a rangy dude, like, put him out there.
I'm almost there. No worries. 21. This checks out. Go ahead.
I mean, if you want Rui Hachimura to be the only wing size defender out there for Washington, by all means, brother. Like, that's fine. I'll concede it.
That's Anthony Gill disrespect.
If you want to put Anthony Gill in the starting lineup, fine, I guess.
This is Raul Neto disrespect.
Raul Neto might be my height. Like, we don't need him on Tobias Harris. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, get some more wing help out there. That's all I'm saying. Free Bonga.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that the Sixers' size and length and switchability defensively is going to make it too tough for Westbrook and Beal to get into a rhythm, which may decide the series as far as the competitiveness of some of these games?
I worry about it more with Russ than I do with Beal. Like, I think this is a series where Beal is just kind of gonna cook regardless. Like, I think he has the right blend of like pull-up shooting, driving ability, passing ability to where like I don't think Ben Simmons is going to lock Bradley Beal down. Like, Bradley Beal went off in all of the games against Philadelphia during the regular season. And again, didn't matter. Philadelphia won all 3 of those games. But like, Beal went off. With Russ, he shot well during the regular season series. Don't want to take that away from him. But just in terms of switching against them, like, I think if Washington is building a path, like, you want Russ just getting to the rim and forcing rotations and then hoping Washington gets hot from 3. If they're just going to switch against him, I find myself a little concerned about Russ just playing a bunch of one-on-one in a playoff setting because the results are just so wild. There's just a lot of variance there. And I think there could be a situation in which he leans a little bit too much on the pull-up. And that's such a swing skill for him already. I could definitely envision a scenario where he just doesn't have it going and the offense dies and Philly is just kind of able to win the possession battle and it's just kind of over early.
Well, I mean, look at the playing games against Boston, struggled in the first half, couldn't get that rhythm. Against Indiana, looked like a whole different guy. So that's the tough part. And I think just to counter it, Westbrook could win them a game. One of those games where that pull-up is going. Because when it's going, it's tough because you can't let him keep shooting them if he's made 3 or 4 here in a row. Mm-hmm. And then that opens up the drive. Now he's attacking the basket, help comes, kick, so on and so forth. I think if the Wizards had a little bit better defense, a little bit better overall 3-point shooting, I think they can make a real push. But I think Philly's going to get this one 5. I'll say 5.
That's where I went. Well, I was between Philly and 5 and Philly and 6. Because I would like to believe in just the collective scoring power of Washington. Guy we haven't even really brought up like that outside of the playing game reference, like Davis Bertans. It's been such an uneven season for him. But if there's a series that's tailor-made for him to kind of go off, like this would be the one. I mean, just in terms of Philadelphia still wanting to play mostly drop with Joel Embiid, they have played him a step or two higher in pick and roll covers this season as compared to years past, but he's still a drop big. So there should be some natural pick and pops built in there for Davis Bertans. And he isn't just a pick and pop big. He's a guy that can fluff pin downs. He can get busy off movement. If you lose him in transition, kind of dead. And he has range out to like 30, 35 feet. So he's a guy that can fundamentally break what Philadelphia wants to do. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like the more we talk this out, I'm so worried about how Washington even matches up. Like it's fun to talk about the offense because I do think this is going to, even in this series, like I could see Beal averaging 30. I could see Russ still averaging a triple-double. And it just might not matter because I don't know how I don't know how they match up with Philadelphia.
But hey, I mean, Wiz very easily, they play their style no matter what. So you could very easily see them getting Philadelphia to struggle, pushing in transition, building a lead, building on it. Now they got a rhythm. I mean, it's how they got to this point in the first place. So just be interesting to see if they can do that 4 times. But I'm interested to see. It should be a fun one.
It should be. I'll think a little bit more on it tonight. I think I'll probably tweet out my first round series predictions like Saturday morning when I really have a firm handle on it. I'm going to lean Philly in 6 for now, but I would not be surprised if I end up getting to Philly in 5 by Saturday. Like I'm very worried about Washington's defense in this series, and it kind of stinks because they have been like one of, if not the hottest team in basketball over the last month and a half. But man, it's playoff basketball now. Like you really get to hunker down and pick at the weak points of the team, and Washington has a lot of points that you could pick at.
Wow, slander for what a great season they've had. Speaking of slander, let's go to Brooklyn.
Wow. You know what? Never mind. I'm just going to leave that alone. Brooklyn won the season series 3-0. I just don't see a real pathway to Boston winning this series. I will start there. Like the Jaylen Brown injury just hurts. And my first question coming in, and I want to give a quick shout out to Jared Weiss at The Athletic for writing a story on this as well. But like my first question coming into this series being solidified was who on earth is guarding Kyrie Irving? Like assuming Brooklyn's big 3 is healthy, like who gets the Kyrie assignment?
Kemba.
I think that's a problem if Kemba is the primary guy on Kyrie. Like I think he kind of has to be.
Fournier. I mean, but you have one of 2 choices.
Yeah, like I don't want Fournier on Kyrie either. I mean, there's no good answer, but like, man. Because I think in a perfect world, like Boston would want to hide Kemba somewhere and just kind of throw him.
I have option number 3. Option number 3 is zone.
Do we want to run zone against Brooklyn?
You have to pick a poison at some point.
You do, in fact, have to pick a poison. And this is why I'm just kind of like, man, I've been super impressed with what Jason Tatum has been able to do this season, particularly over the last month. He has been tremendous. Like, I've written a story about him at basketballnews.com about his ascension to superstardom, because I think he's right there. But
did you just sneak a plug in there?
You're not the only one that can plug content. What are we doing here?
The plug is done.
Come on. But no, Jason Tatum's going to need so much more. I guess if I'm building out the case for Boston making this a competitive series, it's going to be hammering Brooklyn whenever they're in drop, and Kemba getting busy that way and taking some of the pressure off of Jason Tatum. Because I do think Tatum can get busy and pick and roll as well, but he also, with the high release point, with the ability to step back or sidestep with those threes, he can get a shot whenever against whoever. Like, Kemba in particular would have to get busy against the drop and kind of force Brooklyn into more switching, or just force them to downsize in general, get a worse defender on the floor. But beyond that, I just find it hard to see.
Well, let's try and find a path. Because the first thing I wrote down in my notes was, I don't know how this version of the Celtics wins. And I probably feel a little bit better about them if we had seen a more consistent A, defense, or B, ball movement. One of those styles on either end, I'd probably feel a bit better. So let's see what the path is. Because, I mean, it's one of the things that happens is I feel like there's these series, there's so many good series, and there's the ones that are pretty clear, or are just like, yo, I'm out of energy. No way the Celtics win, which I don't think you're doing, but I just think it happens. And when you're in the league, that is the most infuriating thing in the world. Like, no, y'all, we can win. No, you can't. Working hours trying to figure out how to do this, and you're gonna tell me we can't do it. Right. So I'm gonna throw the Celtics some bail. Okay. They can slow the game down. Do a great job in transition. Build a wall whenever Harden brings it up. Don't let him get any easy things. No lobs. Take that away. Some junk defenses. Some zone. Hope Brooklyn gets stuck in some version of hero ball for enough possessions. Control the possessions. Move the ball offensively. Make that defense rotate. Pick them apart that way. The only problem is, I don't know if any of that matters against this particular team. Like, I don't know if because I don't know if Boston has the type to be able to play that kind of grind it out, get you in the mud type game. And I don't know if it matters if Tatum and Kemba lose their minds, because I don't feel like Brooklyn's going to shrug. Like, I feel like they're just going to be like, okay, you still have to guard us. Like, if Tatum and Kemba do what they did in the second half against Washington, does Brooklyn blink?
Probably not, because at some point, one of those guys has to go to the bench.
And that's a massive problem. I don't know where the production is going to come from for the Celtics. You can't really stagger the lineups. Like, those guys have to get rest at some point. So it's either going to be an all Tatum lineup, which means the defense can lock in on them, or it's going to be an all Kemba lineup, which means the defense can lock in on them. You could throw your double teams at those Brooklyn guys, but good luck with the lineups they can throw out there. I wish Jaylen Brown was in this series. It'd be a lot more fun. It'd be a lot more fun to watch this one, just because they can get that bucket. But I think what the work that Brooklyn has done was for a series like this. As far as, the theory is, hey, let's get them to slow down. Let's get them to, your turn, my turn type deal. And they don't really do that. They're going to keep moving the ball. They're going to keep attacking. So I just think it's going to be interesting to see if Brooklyn can get their lineups right, get those three playing back together. Because we've seen them, 8 times now?
It feels like it.
And I don't think Boston's seen all three at all once.
Right.
I think they saw 2, then they saw Harden and Kemba, I think, and I think they saw KD again. But I wish I had more.
So I will throw, I kicked off with the who guards Kyrie question. It's really a broader, how do you defend the big three? I'll throw out 2 names for you, just to see how much burn do you anticipate them to get in the series? Like, how much do you trust them? All that stuff, wherever you want to take that question. So first name is Semi Ojeleye.
Brooklyn will welcome that in a heartbeat.
I would imagine so because of the spacing, but like that at least allows you to, have Tatum elsewhere, have Smart elsewhere. Other name I had was Romeo Langford.
Brooklyn would also welcome that, although his skill set still intrigues me.
Yeah, like I think he would be kind of the quote unquote swing piece to really kind of boost Boston's chances a little bit. Like again, not Brooklyn would still be the overwhelming favorite, but if you want to go from, if you want to go from like 4% to 8%, if Langford has a really good series, like maybe he's the kind of guy, because I mean he is wing sized. You hope that the shot's going to be there. Man, they were already going to be a defender short anyway. Like even with Jaylen Brown in there, you still just kind of take Brooklyn's offensive talent, but you take him out, like there really isn't a great option that can match up with those guys physically. And again, that completely ignores that they can score over the top of you anyway. But to match up with them physically and also not be someone that Brooklyn is okay with ignoring offensively. Out of like Ojale and Langford, like Langford's the guy that could fit in most cleanly. And even then, if you're trusting Romeo Langford to help you win a playoff series, then you're not really ready to win this series. And that's just kind of unfortunate.
I mean, they probably trust Tristan Thompson more than those guys, at least defensively, which is probably where they're at. I mean, I just think it's hard to go against that Brooklyn team, those three, where your bench isn't really producing at a level, and all or most of the heavy lifting offensively has to come from Tatum and Kemba. Like he can't just be Jason Tatum. He's got to be Jason Makem.
Okay. That might have been worse than Boston's odds in the series. That's actually tough. Why? I have another loose rotation question for Boston. Because as I was kind of spitballing some ideas about how Boston can have some pathways to open up Brooklyn's defense a little bit, give themselves much of a shot. One thing that stood out, my initial thought was like, man, I wish, just in terms of helping them get to the rim or helping them spread the floor, like I wish Boston had a stretch big they can trust. And I was like, wait a minute. Like Luke Cornett did give them some good minutes post like trade and stuff, which surprised the heck out of me. Like, I wonder how much they give him burn or how much burn he gets in this series. But I think your answer is going to be Brooklyn would welcome that. Do I have that right?
Brooklyn would welcome that.
There we go.
I mean, he should, though, especially if Robert Williams is going to be injured. Right. He's going to have to get some minutes. But the question then becomes, what coverage do you use to keep him on the floor?
Right.
And that becomes an issue. Because it's tough to deal with them anyways. You don't want a liability. But they could always go zone. I guess what's throwing me off is like Boston's entirely too proper, quote-wise, right now. Like with their praise towards Brooklyn, which tells me there's something up their sleeve. Like I still think Brooklyn's going to win the series, but I think there's a punch coming. Mm-hmm. I don't know when. Like game 2 or 3 or something like that.
I feel that. Because like
also, very interesting that Boston fans have to now deal with this super team after they were chanting "Thank you, Brooklyn" for like 19 years. We'll subplot.
Sweet, sweet basketball irony, I guess. That's just kind of tough. Like, I mean, to the Cornette point, and I'll go off of it because, like, if Luke Cornett's not going to be that important in the series, I don't think. But my initial thinking with that is like he is a guy that can kind of space the floor for you, at least theoretically, and maybe that helps you. That forces Brooklyn to downsize a little bit if those pick and pop pockets are open for Cornette. But I mean, to your point, like I don't know how he holds serve defensively long enough to even have that kind of impact. So
I think Brooklyn's okay forcing themselves to go to small.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like I'm just thinking of like natural shots to get. I mean, if you're playing drop, you have natural shots to get to. That was kind of my thinking there. But
that was Blake Griffin disrespect. It's fine. What do you need to see from Brooklyn in this series? Is there anything you're looking to see, or is this just this is who they are type deal?
I mean, they need to stay healthy. That's really the big thing. But in terms of what I want to see them on the floor, like I am curious to see what their big three actually looks like together. Again, we haven't seen much of them at all during the regular season. Like, to their point, I mean, to their side, it's actually kind of fortunate that they're getting this version of Boston in the first round, because this kind of feels like, in terms of the rotation, let me throw that disclaimer out there. In terms of the rotation, this kind of feels like a little bit of a tune-up for them, to where they can kind of work out how they want to run their offense with those three. Because again, Boston's not at full strength. And not only are they not at full strength, they're not at full strength without one of their best defenders. So it's also going to be a little bit easier to kind of work in those three to kind of attack from the perimeter, because you're not worried about, again, the Smart, Brown, and Tatum trio. Like now it's Smart, Tatum, and mystery box, question mark, shoulder shrug. Like I don't know what they're going to do there.
Are you interested in seeing Claxton switch on to or guard Tatum at all?
I'm always interested to see Claxton. I'll start there. But yeah, I am interested to see what that looks like. Because if he looks good against Tatum, then there's not going to be an excuse for Brooklyn to not have Claxton playing consistent minutes in the postseason. We will bang that drum early.
I don't even know who's banging against it at this point, but it'll be a good test for him as far as having that size and being able to shoot over. I want to see that. I just want to see what the lineups look like, the rotation, what it looks like, honestly, with those three back. But I wish I had more, but I don't think Boston has enough offensively to take this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go. I'll probably go Brooklyn in 5. Like I do think Boston gets a home game. They're going to get a Tatum game. I think Tatum's going to have a good series. Like I just don't think it's going to be good enough to swing the ultimate result of it. I think I'm going to go Brooklyn at 5. I don't really have much reason to, unless we get a random Harden or KD or Kyrie like turned an ankle badly at practice on Friday or something like that. Then I think it's pretty firmly Brooklyn in 5. Like it's hard to think of a pathway for them winning 4 times.
Okay, I like it. So we've done all of the Eastern Conference.
The East is done.
So stay tuned for part 3 of the playoff.
Now we can shift to the West right now. We can start with the Lakers and Suns, and I will just off rip. I am angry that this is a series.
Why are you angry?
I'm angry because I am not 100% prepared for what the Chris Paul discourse is going to be after the series.
Are you ever?
No, I find myself consistently irked with the way that Chris Paul is talked about.
The hashtag is Big Mad, folks.
I'm not going to go on a Chris Paul rant, I promise, but it's just like, it doesn't feel like he gets the respect. And then when he gets the respect, it's, hey, Chris Paul should win MVP over the obvious MVP. And then I have to do that. And now it's Phoenix, LA in the first round. And like, I could not think of a worse matchup for Chris Paul in particular than this Lakers team. And it just kind of annoys me that after the year that Phoenix had, after the year that Chris Paul in particular had, now Chris Paul has to be defended by Dennis Schroeder and also Alex Caruso, and he has to deal with either like Andre Drummond showing high in pick and roll, which, no, not always great at it, but just in terms of the size and the length, Chris Paul's a small dude. He has to deal with that, or when the Lakers decide to quote unquote downsize, it's Anthony Davis at the 5. And like, just with the way that the Lakers play pick and roll defense, like they play it higher up than most. So Chris Paul isn't going to have the natural pockets that he has in drop, to where as long as he gets you off the screen, he's able to get a guy on his hip, he's getting to the elbow, he's sprinkling in mid-range jumpers. Against the Lakers, I worry about how often that opportunity is going to be there. To that point, he shot 36% from the field during the regular season against the Lakers, which is a problem because that is your second best shot creator aside from Devin Booker. And I forgot to mention this at the top. The Suns did technically win the regular season series 2-1, but Anthony Davis played one game. The one game he did play, he dropped 42, 12 and 5. And the Lakers won that game. LeBron also only played one of those games, and he had 38 in that game. But to that point, like the thing I'm looking for first and foremost is like, what does Chris Paul look like in pick and roll? Like, what looks are going to be available to him in pick and roll?
I mean, you anticipate, especially with Drummond in it, he'll probably be close to the level of dropping back. I think some of the automatic reads aren't going to be there. But I think Chris Paul can still get to the elbow when he wants to. The question is going to be, what does the Lakers' weak side defense look like? And can the Suns make them pay for helping? You know, how much can you get the roll open? Especially if those guards are going to fight over the top and not necessarily stay behind Chris Paul as he attacks. Can you get the rolls from Ayton? You know, can you get the skips to Bridges and, you know, Crowder on the weak side? But I think Chris Paul has gotten to the point where he can get what he wants. The issue is the Lakers can mix the coverages. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of goes into that data collection mode of sorts, where he's kind of like, hey, I know where my spot is. I can get to it. This is what you're doing. But they can go small. You know, so they could switch AD if they wanted. They could switch other guys onto him if they wanted. They could put Drummond out there. They could even put Marcus Solak back out there. And they've had some battles.
Are they allowed to do that? Is that in the rule book?
This is your fault, by the way. But
what do you mean?
That's episode 38 of the Dunker Spot. But it'll be that part will be interesting. And then as you talk about that, I start to wonder how much of this is a Devin Booker series. And as I ask that, because of his ability to come off screens, because of the angles that Phoenix kind of uses, you know, non-traditional, they'll put him under the basket on the block, kind of clear out the side for him, let him go either way. Mm-hmm. His pull-up is going to bring Drummond a little bit higher than Chris Paul's. Can that be a pressure point? Can he kind of shift it with his scoring and playmaking at this point to kind of balance out the looks Chris Paul may or may not get?
I think that's going to be the pathway for Phoenix. Like it's going to be Booker-centric. Well, I mean, he's their number one scorer anyway, so that's not like a dramatic shift for what they want to do or anything. But like, I do think he's going to have to take more of the load because again, I just don't think those Chris Paul automatics are there. Like, not that he's going to be like super flustered, doesn't know what to do because it's Chris Paul and he's a basketball genius, but the quality of looks for him, he's going to have at bare minimum, he's going to have to work a heck of a lot harder to get there. And to your point, as you mentioned, like the other guys around those pick and roll actions, like Mikal Bridges is a very good off-ball mover. Jay Crowder is also a very good off-ball mover. So there are pockets for the Suns to attack, but again, it's still asking like 5'11" Chris Paul to kind of wait out the hedge and then make these skips to those cutters with, you know, if they're targeting Andre Drummond in pick and roll, Anthony Davis is on the back line, LeBron James on the back line. So even if you have those guys cutting or relocating, you still have some really darn good rovers behind that, just kind of waiting. So that could be a little bit problematic, I feel. But to your point, yeah, it's absolutely going to have to be a Booker series. Like he's going to have to kind of carry the torch in that regard.
That's interesting because I feel like anytime the Suns or maybe a team has shown something that might have them out of rhythm, they always throw a Spain pick and roll out there. And I wonder how important that'll be to get to, mainly just to keep the Lakers out of an automatic rhythm and change the pressure points, change the rotations. And I think that's the sneaky part about Phoenix. I think we could see the potential issues, but they do a good job of throwing different things at you. Who do you think is going to be Chris Paul's target in this series? So every year we talk about Chris Paul struggling with switches, and every year he picks one guy to torture. And last year it was Robert Covington. Who's it going to be this year?
Oh, man. I because like the first name that came to mind was Andre Drummond, but like I don't think they're gonna switch him unless it's like a Leighton Clark type deal. So I guess it's still Drummond by default. If not, if it's 80 at the 5, like who's gonna be the wing out there? That's I guess that's really gonna be my question. I don't know if there's an easy answer for him, and that's part of the problem.
Could it be Dennis Schroeder?
That's really what I was thinking, but I'm just like, man, if Dennis Schroeder's the answer, like that's just kind of, I don't know what you do. Like I was thinking Schroeder, I was thinking Kyle Kuzma, but like Kuzma's a good defender now, and he's also longer. And again, that's just Chris Paul shooting over someone that's much larger than he is. I was thinking like if Wes Matthews finds himself in the closing lineup, like maybe it's him, but like again, Wes is just a strong dude. Like maybe it's KCP, who's at least by my eye, he's better at like chasing guys and staying on the hip more so than just being a really good on-ball defender. So maybe that's your answer.
It's probably Talen Horton-Tucker if he cracks the rotation. But while we're on this, I'm curious here because I just think that Drummond, and I don't want to make it a huge Drummond discussion. I feel like he's, for the most part, giving the effort you need. I don't think it necessarily always ends up in the result you want, but he's doing what he's asked to do.
Yeah.
And I think his ability to be big in this series is going to play a part to where he won't have to be as high as he would against like a Steph Curry or those kind of pull-up threats against Chris Paul. He can kind of get close to that level, protect that pull-up, let his guy get back in front. And this is where I think the weak side defense is going to be so important. The Lakers defense is designed to pull over early, and then you skip it out and we play out of it.
Right.
And so that's going to be the biggest part. Can Phoenix break that? Like, can Phoenix hurt the Lakers in that way to where they can open up a role for Ayton, or they can, kind of scheme some ways where it's not automatic help, whether it's an empty side or, whether it's a Spain pick and roll, or maybe using Booker as a screener and a double pick and roll. Just, I feel like they're going to have to kind of scheme some of those looks open without going as pure automatic as they had during the season. And that'll be the interesting part for me. We went heavy on the Suns early. I like it. Fun stuff.
It's a really good team. Who would you pick in this series?
Yeah, we went right there.
I still have more questions, but I'm curious to see where you.
I was like, that was it.
No. We don't have to end it right there. Like you mentioned before we even get into picks and stuff, I'll just go down the laundry list. You mentioned Talen Horton-Tucker if he cracks the rotation. I don't know if he cracks the rotation. I do think this could be an interesting series for him just because Phoenix is as switch heavy as they are generally. And I think he does have the kind of skill as a driver that can kind of beat those switches or at least force a rotation and make things tough in that regard. I also wonder what he looks like against the second unit in general with Phoenix and their bigs, because there's been a lot of toggling between who they have out there. I mean, between Sarge, between Frank Kaminsky. Like, Suns bench versus Lakers bench is just going to be interesting in general, I feel like that may be where they're able to make up some of the gap if you're assuming that they're going to struggle against the Lakers starters because of the defense.
See, I think THT is going to get a run to see, but I feel like if that doesn't go well, it's going to slide to Wesley Matthews or they'll go in a different direction. Just because of the way Wesley Matthews is playing right now on both ends, it's hard to keep him off the bench or out of the game, out of the rotation. Phoenix's bench has been, we've talked about it over this course of the season. I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it hasn't dropped because they've been really good. Shout out to Campaign, shout out to the bigs. They know how to play. They play on both ends, two-way lineups. I'm interested to see how the Lakers counter that, because even just going back to the playing game, when it was time to, hey, we need to win this game, they kept LeBron and AD out there to start the fourth.
Mm-hmm.
And Golden State was still like, yo, our bench. And
yeah,
didn't work out too well. And then how does Phoenix handle that? Even if it's not both, I don't think they would go both, especially early in the first half. But how do they respond to their second unit getting met by LeBron or AD? You know, how do they meet that kind of mixture? That kind of shifts things in the postseason. Just a thought I had jotted down.
Yeah, the problem is, and I probably should have started with this one before getting into the Chris Paul stuff. The problem is, I don't really know how. Well, I guess let me take that back. I know how the Suns are probably going to plan to defend Anthony Davis and LeBron James. I just don't know how effective that's going to be. A, because they're really freaking good, but also just because of the types of players they're going to be defending with. Like Mikal Bridges is fantastic. Like he has been an all defensive caliber defender for me all year long. You know this. But like him against power wings is a bit different. Him against the power wing in LeBron James is a bit different. And then there's Anthony Davis, who again only played once against Phoenix. And when he did, he dropped 42 and didn't have to work super hard to do so. So I think in that regard, this is going to be a huge DeAndre Ayton series. Because in the event that the Lakers, I mean, when they do go 80 at the 5, like Ayton is going to have to hold his own in space. And he's going to have to be able to navigate that matchup and not get destroyed in that matchup.
I'm concerned with Ayton in this matchup because of the different things that Anthony Davis can do. Mm-hmm. And I think I was watching the last time they played. I think in the second half they started Ayton and Sarge together. I think they had started Torrey Craig to start the game. Mm-hmm. But either way, Ayton was guarding Davis. Post up's going to be tough. Hopefully you get the face up. You can test the pull up or the jab and J. But then you have the element of the pick and roll, the element of the pick and pop, and then you have AD spaced. And I feel like that's going to be a lot of responsibility for Ayton, who excels when he can do one thing and one thing over and over and over and over again. Not that he can't do multiple things. I'm not saying that, but his best performances are usually when he's able to execute that base. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that he's going to have to mentally affect from, hey, I think he's about to set a pick, to, oh, he's not about to set a pick, to, oh, now he's in the corner. Now I have to help. Oh, wait, now he's got the ball. That's going to be tough. It reminds me a little bit of when last year in the playoffs, Blazers Lakers, when the Lakers were like, hey, we're just going to let Anthony Davis do a whole lot of stuff, like come off screens, pick and pop. Good luck, Nurkic. And it was like, ha.
Yeah, like I also worry about Ayton. Like even going back a little bit earlier to the conversation about Chris Paul running pick and rolls, like with the Lakers playing their bigs a little bit higher, like Ayton is not only gonna have to roll hard, like he's also going to be like decisive with it. Like if he is able to receive like one of those low bounce passes between two that Chris Paul's really good at, or they go over the head, like he has to one dribble go up with it, or quickly survey where the tag is coming from on the weak side and then make that skip out. Like you have to maximize any amount of space that you're able to create against this Lakers defense, because they are really good, they are really disciplined, and they cover ground very quickly. They will send two to the ball and they'll still turn your 4-on-3 into a 4-on-4, you know, before you dribble twice. So like Ayton as a quick processor, I think that's really going to be on display. Like if he doesn't process these actions quickly enough, LA is going to be able to recover, and then it's just going to be a lot of one-on-one. And if the Lakers have you playing a lot of one-on-one, the Lakers are going to make you uncomfortable because they have the personnel to do so.
I think it'll be a really fun series in that regards. And I think that the counter punches from Phoenix are going to be interesting, because they're going to have to kind of make some moves, make some adjustments as it goes on. And I like, who are the matchups for those two guys? Like, Is it Jay Crowder for LeBron? Do you feel great about that?
Maybe that's your move. You go, well, even then, like the Lakers are starting so Ayton on Drummond, and then
You have to put Crowder on AD if you do that.
Yeah,
So that's where the math gets off to me. I think it's less that Phoenix couldn't do it. It's just that they don't match up well with those two guys. And those two guys are the consistent pressure points. Like, regardless of how bad their offense is going, regardless of all that, we can put those guys in the post. And if you can't guard them, they're going to score or you're going to double and we're going to open something else up. And that's going to sustain us as we continue to guard you on the other end. And when Lakers have that formula going, it's tough.
Yeah, like that's the formula with the traditional five on the floor with them. And if that's the formula when they downsize as well, it just puts so much more strain on your defense. And like you mentioned earlier, like Wes Matthews is playing well. He's a guy that can spot up on the perimeter if they want to downsize and do that. Like, again, Kyle Kuzma can give you some of that element. The Lakers have options to kind of go with 80 at the 5 lineups. I hate this for Phoenix.
Watch Phoenix go zone and win a game.
That would be freaking brilliant.
Keep it in the back pocket. I have an interesting question I had written down.
Okay.
How much does Chris Paul get put in pick and roll against LeBron?
Like
they're buddies.
Like, that's probably the late game pressure point for the Lakers. Like, if LeBron just says, you know what, fine, let's just spam these inverted pick and rolls and let's go mismatch hunting. Like, Chris Paul isn't going to back down. Like, I don't even think it's going to be a show and recover. Like, Chris Paul would probably just be like, I'll guard him. And I don't know how that's going to go. Like, it's always fun to reference 2014, 2015, when it was like Chris Paul defending Kevin Durant and not looking half bad at it. But like, this LeBron though, like he can just put you under the basket if he needs to. Like, there's absolutely going to be some gamesmanship on that regard at some point.
So who's your pick? And while you think about it, are you surprised with some of the Suns' momentum pick-wise? Because I feel like I've seen a few more Suns picks than I imagined. Or are you upset because Charles Barkley did it?
I'm going to say yes. I'm not going to say what I'm saying yes to. I'm going to say yes. Man, I have been big upping Phoenix all year long. And like, I in good conscience, I can't pick them over LA. I want to. But like, I just don't think, like, the Lakers are entering this series with the best two players in the series. And also, there isn't a great answer defensively for either of them.
Yeah, but you could bog the Lakers' offense down. This is a team that's scored the ball. I think they've won, 43 of the last 56 games. You got Chris Paul. You got lineup versatility, shoot threes, make them rotate, attack those rotations.
I want to get there. I do.
Chris Paul late in games, Devin Booker with a chance to put a stamp on his whole career, take a step forward, campaign off the bench. Phoenix fans, the black jerseys.
Lakers in 6. This freaking stinks. Like, I Lakers in 6. Like, objectively, I don't know if the Suns have a great answer for those two guys, and it might just kind of boil down to that. Honestly, what I'm worried about is that the Lakers win this series, and then it turns into, I thought Chris Paul was the MVP. Why did he get knocked out of the first round again? I thought Chris Paul was a legend. What's up with all? And this is going to start this whole loop of Chris Paul talk. It's going to be overcorrection from the MVP talk, which is really overcorrection from everything else. And it's just going to be annoying.
The hashtag is Big Mad, folks, just so you guys are aware. If that does occur, we'll have a hashtag Big Mad episode. We'll go ahead and let Nekias get his thoughts off. I have Lakers in 7.
Okay.
I would not be surprised to see Phoenix win games 1 and game 2, potentially. Okay. Just because I'm sure they have a plan, they have a scheme. They're a resilient team. They are. And they have that kind of versatility to where even though they don't have the great matchups, they can find a way. Now, how do they handle the Lakers making whatever the adjustment is? That's where it gets interesting for me. And that Lakers defense is tough to bet against. And the fact that they don't have that one person that can point to stop Anthony Davis, that's where I kind of lean the other way. So the Lakers are going to get the defense. Lakers are going to get Anthony Davis. Lakers probably got a good shot.
Fair enough. We will transition into Denver-Portland, the 3-6 matchup. The Nuggets won that regular season series 2-1, though the one came very late in the regular season, in which I don't know if Denver really cared that they lost that game, to be frank about it.
It was the last game of the season. I think Portland hit 5 threes in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah, we kind of knew where that was going very early. My question for you, just to kick things off, I'm actually going to throw a bit of a curveball for you. I have a random question for you. Who's going to provide more on offense in this series, Robert Covington or Aaron Gordon?
Robert Covington.
Why is it Covington for you?
I think he'll get more opportunities just because of how he spaces in that offense and the kickouts that he'll get. I had an Aaron Gordon question too, but how are they going to use Aaron Gordon is going to be the interesting part. Is it going to be post-ups? Is it going to be cuts? How's he going to get loose is the question for me. It should be Covington. But as far as impact, I think I may go Gordon. Now, as far as who can swing this series, I'll go back to Covington. Okay. Because if Covington's playing well offensively, Portland's different. Mm-hmm. If he's going to knock down threes and then occasionally drive a closeout, it's a different team. It's actually funny you mentioned Aaron Gordon because it's kind of ironic. I feel like they got him for the big wings and then end up facing 3 small guards.
Yeah. Not only are they facing the guards, like they're also just kind of missing their perimeter defenders.
You know what? I've been thinking about that as I thought about this series because I think Will Barton's on the way back, but he's not all the way back. Morris is on the way back for sure, right? They still have some guys who can bother. When you look at Campasso, you look at Austin Rivers potentially. I don't know if this is the series for that because of the way those guys score. Shaq Harrison could be a bothersome guy. So I think they still have some of the defensive pieces there. It just feels like a really odd series with both teams are pointing at each other like, yeah, we can win. Like, I feel like Portland's just jubilant they're not in the play-in this year.
Also true. Like, I feel like I think this is a series that goes no shorter than 6. Like, just because both teams I feel like they have some pretty obvious pressure points on both sides. Even with the injuries with Denver, like there just isn't a great answer for Nikola Jokic, period. And then with Portland, like Damian Lillard already knows what coverage he's gonna get, especially if he's attacking Jokic in pick and roll. He knows what coverage he's gonna get. Portland's gonna have automatics going down if Damian's running pick and roll. Like, the show is coming. You're gonna drop it in to Nurkic, and then you're just kind of working from an advantage from there. As we've mentioned, or more specifically, as you've mentioned on the podcast, like Portland has been seeing traps or hard hedges like all season long. they have had plenty of practice, plenty of reps seeing that particular seeing those type of 4-on-3s. They should know what they're going to get and how to beat it. It's going to just be up to them to beat it. I guess from there, I'm just like I'm worried about Denver's defense now. I'm still worried about
which part?
Which part of Denver's defense? Like, I think what swings it, at least among the starters, like, what does the back line look like? Like, as much as we praise Michael Porter Jr. for improving as a help defender and stuff, like, this is where, you know, you're doing your homework, you're doing quizzes. This is the big test now. Like, all right, let's see how much you've grown now. Now it's Dame in a playoff setting. You know they're sending 2 to the ball. Now it's Nurkic making a quick swing to CJ McCollum. Now McCollum's attacking. Let's see what you do. Or if it is just the dump off the Nurkic in the short roll and he takes a dribble, let's see how early you show the help. And if he makes the kick out, let's see how you close out. Let's see if you can do that under control. And let's see if we can get back, you know, keep everything back in front from there. Like, this is where Michael Porter Jr. has to prove that growth is real. And if it isn't.
Oh, you're about to drop him?
No, I'm just saying, like, if that isn't real, if Porter Jr. can't do it, then you got problems. Because if this is going back to last posting, if this is the Michael Porter Jr. that we saw during the first, like, 3 games of that Utah-Denver series in the first round, then Denver's in trouble. Because not only do you need Michael Porter Jr. to show up defensively for very obvious reasons, like with no Jamal Murray, he has to be your number 2 on offense. And like, if he's just giving all of it up on the other end, there's only so much Jokic can do. Like, the formula for Denver is holding your own enough defensively, getting to a close game, and then Jokic is arguably the best late game option in basketball because of what he can do as a scorer and as a passer. And like, that's going to be, you just kind of milk it from there. Clear side, high elbow, post up, have a guy run around him. If the cut's there, hit it. If not, he's going to back you down, go to that somber shuffle or whatever. But they have to get to that point first. So the back line has to be on point.
Are you more concerned about his weak side defense or the potential for quote unquote mismatch hunts where they put him in pick and roll and try and get a switch?
I think I'm worried more about the off-ball defense or the weak side defense. Like, honestly, if it's on the ball and they're targeting him, they're probably just going to switch it. And I think just from a scheme perspective, that's probably a little bit cleaner. At least you keep things in front, and then you can kind of, you know, again, show help at the nail or whatever. If they try to drive past them, whatever, that's an easier help and recover. If he's not bringing it off the ball, like, you're already sending 2 and you're already just inviting advantage basketball. If he also messes up, then those are just wide open shots at the rim or on the perimeter. You can't have that.
Now, this is the interesting part about Porter Jr. defensively. This is where you miss Will Barton, because now it almost forces either Aaron Gordon to guard one of those 3 guys or for Michael Porter Jr. to guard one of those 3 guys. And if you put Gordon on Covington, you can get him being a menace on the weak side as far as helping in rotations, recovering, those kind of things. And that could take Porter Jr. out of some of those situations. But then you also have Porter Jr. having to guard one of those 3 guys. So I feel like that'll be an interesting dynamic to see. And especially Barton remains out, it'll be tough to deal with. Now, you mentioned the pick and roll coverages, and I'm actually very interested to see what Denver pulls out. Because we've seen them actually mix coverages, and we've seen a lot of Jokic at the level. We know teams will do that against Portland. We know they'll do that against Dame. I'm wondering if they start out with Jokic dropping back. I'm wondering if they mix that in. Because I don't feel like they're going to put 2 on the ball against CJ. And I don't feel like they're going to do it against Powell. So that's the part where I'm trying to figure out, do they go aggressive to start and try to play backwards? Or do they play it smooth to start and then move forward. Because in the case that they're at the level, which I think most people anticipate, now Nurkic becomes the X factor. Mm-hmm. And while I think he's going to be the most locked in version of Nurkic that we could possibly get because he's going against Jokic in an MVP year, mm-hmm. he also has to make the right plays. You know, the extra dribble isn't going to help this series, especially against Denver, who loves to pre-rotate. I mean, you'll see it whenever Portland goes to that empty side pick and roll. That low man on the weak side is already pulled over in the paint. Ever since that last time they faced off in the playoffs, they automatically do it. So that part intrigues me. But how would you guard CJ if you were Denver? Because two on the ball opens plays up, drop hands him the pull up, and switch keeps everything in front, but also invites CJ McCollum to turn into CJ McCollum. So what do you think? How would you guard CJ?
Honestly, like I probably send 2 to the ball on CJ just to test it out. Because like I don't, just on a basic level, I don't think he's the passer that Dame is. So I think there's room to bother him a little bit more, especially when you get to those staggered units, when one of, Dame is off the floor and you get CJ by himself. Like, yeah, sprinkle that in. Like, see what you got there. As you were mentioning, like maybe Denver mixes in some more traditional drop. That is, assuming Denver starts Campazzo, like that is a lot of pressure on Campazzo. And I also question just how much Campazzo bothers Dame to begin with. Like, I know he's going to be there, but he's also just small. And Dame is just able to kind of rise over the top.
Well, I have some Nekias for you.
Oh, go for it.
I think I saw this floating on the timeline the other day. It says in their stats, when they're matched up against together, Dame shot 4 for 15, 2 of 8 from 3, 12 points, 3 assists, 3 turnovers, which is precisely the kind of stats you don't want to go out there before a playoff series against Damian Lillard.
Correct. And like I've seen tweets about that. And I have also seen I've seen Matt Moore, shout out HP Basketball. I've also seen, I think, Ryan Blackburn also post some of the clips from those numbers. And it's like Campazzo is in the vicinity. Or it's, Campazzo is there, but also Dame is just in his normal shooting motion. Like it just doesn't bother him at all. So like I kind of worry about what is the actual impact of Campazzo being there, right?
So it's a Campazzo no for you.
Yeah.
So who's Campazzo going to bother the most? He's going to bother one of those 3. Who's he going to bother the most?
Like I could see him and Dame getting into like a skirmish or something. In terms of actual, bothering him on a pick and roll or something like that. Like I think he probably has more of a chance against CJ than he does against Dame. But even then, again, like it's not necessarily about ability, because I do think Campazzo is a smart defender. I do think he's good at getting over screens and stuff. It's just the size aspect. And like at a certain point, the size is just going to matter when you can just kind of rise over the top. Like Dame doesn't have the highest release point, but he gets a bunch of elevation on the jumper. CJ gets elevation on the jumper and he has a high release point. So at a certain point, like there's only so much Campazzo can physically do, is my kind of issue.
Let me check Campazzo's age real quick.
All right.
I mean, he's a rookie, so I'm trying to figure out where we're going with this one.
I don't like this being taken as Campazzo slander. Like he's been a solid rookie.
Nah, not slander. Just trying to make sure we're on the same page here. Ooh, 30 looks like. This tracks. All right.
It's a bad narrative. I have a bench question for you.
All right. What you get?
So I would assume we're gonna have Enes Kanter minutes off the bench for Portland. We're gonna see that Millsap, JaMychal Green front court off the bench for Denver. Who do you foresee winning that particular battle?
Between those two, in the sense of what, just overall?
Yeah, like who's going to bring more impact? Like you have Cantor who can mash smaller dudes on the block or just kill you on the offensive glass, and then with Millsap and Green, well, either one of those guys at the 5 is the spacing element that kind of brings Cantor out. And
it's the
kind of
playoffs. So Paul Millsap.
Okay.
But Cantor, here's the difficult part about the Cantor deal. If you're going to switch with those two in there, which you might, you're opening up the rebounds for Cantor. If he's going to rebound, good luck. And if you play the traditional coverages, he might be able to get some more roles. So I think this actually isn't a horrific Cantor series as long as he doesn't have to defend Jokic in pick and roll, pick and pop scenarios. Yeah, I said it.
Okay. Fair enough. Now, like I do think Jamal Murray being out of there makes Cantor more playable in the series. Like I think they're gonna probably hitch him to those like hybrid second units anyway. But again, like who's scaring you as a pull-up shooter for Denver at this point? Like I don't think there's an answer to
that. Now here's a question for you.
Okay.
Do the Blazers have an answer for Michael Porter Jr.?
Like I guess the natural answer is Covington, just because he does have the length and stuff. But
then who guards Aaron Gordon?
I think if I'm Portland, I'm fine with throwing Norman Powell on him and just saying, hey, if you want to beat us with Aaron Gordon post-ups, be my guest.
Now, the Blazers have put Powell on Porter Jr. generally and put Covington on Gordon, which would make sense for Powell. He usually does well against wings, good point of attack, good against ball pressure. Michael Porter Jr. will just rise over anyone. So how much value are you getting there? Also, the cuts that he makes opens up things on the glass. So it'll be interesting to me. For me, with the way the Nuggets are currently formed, I would put whatever resources I could to make it difficult for Michael Porter Jr. Like I would say, we probably don't have an answer for Jokic. We might try a couple things, but this guy can't beat us. Because if we can make it a little tougher on him, maybe 22 points on 19 shots, something like that. You have to deal with our 3. We feel we got a shot, as opposed to the difference. I think that's going to be the big one for me. How well does Michael Porter Jr. play, and how does Portland respond? Because like we talked about, Denver having the wings to guard big wings, Portland has kind of the guards to get buckets, but they don't necessarily have the size to deal with MPJ in this one. So how worried are you about Denver's guards? Because I think we can point to them not having the pull-up threat with Jamal Murray out, but they do have a distinctive style of play. A lot of flow, a lot of cuts, a lot of handoffs, which makes it a little more unpredictable, which makes it a little tougher for Portland. Like their improvements defensively have been because of kind of some game plan principles. We can lock in on X, Y, Z. We can do this. Now they're going to have to defend against the flow and rotate and make multiple efforts. Do you see any value in what Denver's been able to do translating to the playoffs?
I do, because at a basic level, like I still don't trust Portland's guards defensively all that much. And just
we back to the slander, right?
It's not back to the slander, but I just think there are going to be some pockets to attack, especially with, again, like if you just dump it to Jokic and the kind of that left wing area, high elbow, whatever, just kind of clear side curl a guy around him. Like I think Jokic can just eat in that setting, and they can simplify it that way. Or just if they're able to go in transition, or even if it's just an early transition look, quick drag screen, or if Jokic brings it up, you set something for him. There are going to be some ways to throw Portland out of whack. I feel like this is going to be a big Robert Covington has to help a lot series. And depending on where they stash him, if it's on Aaron Gordon, if it's on MPJ, like he's going to have some decisions to make, I feel like. I guess just on the Jokic note, it's a dull thing to say, but like it's going to be pretty important for him to have 3-ball going. Did not have it during the regular season series. but he's going to have to knock that down just to further bring Nurkic out of the paint, or whoever's guarding his Nurkic or his Cancer, to bring them out. Because that's also going to make those handoffs more difficult to guard, or those pick and rolls more difficult to guard. I don't envision Denver having much issue scoring against Portland.
Okay. Let's see. I had something else for you. I had something else cooking for you. So who do you think steps up for Denver offensively?
I do think Porter Jr. is going to have a good series. Like, I don't know if that's cheating as an answer, but I think he's going to be good. I am with you. I think Paul Millsap is going to have himself a series. And I kind of think Austin Rivers can bring something. Like, I do think he'll be able to get downhill against these Portland guards. And if it is playing through Jokic and kind of opening up things that way, like, he is a guy that can knock down, catch and shoot jumpers. And if he gets in a rhythm, then he doesn't mind boogieing late in the clock if he has to. Again, can kind of get downhill if he has to ISO. I could see this being a solid River series.
I see. How important do you think Portland's off-ball movement is going to be in this series?
I don't think it's going to be super important. I mean, it's always a positive to move if it's with a purpose. But like in a vacuum, I don't think it's going to be a major deal, because just with the way that Denver's probably going to guard Dame, and if they do get more aggressive against CJ, it'll be much of the same thing. Like, they're going to have so many automatic looks built in. Like, I don't think there's going to be a major emphasis for the off-ball movement, because I think you already know where your pressure points are going to be.
Now, here's where I'll counter with it.
Okay.
Everyone's ready for you to run pick and roll. If you have CJ, Powell, Dame running off of screens, passing and cutting off a big, getting into dribble handoffs, that's a little different. You can get a little bit more flow. You can maybe catch the defense off guard.
Mm-hmm.
And if you mix that with what you know you're going to get in pick and roll, that might change the formula a little bit. So I'm interested to see if Portland can find that mixture, if they can get some of those sets back in, if they can get some of those cuts back in, backdoor layups, handoffs, those kind of things, and kind of balance that out. I think it's going to be a fun series.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a scorer's ball.
I have no feel for it, to be honest with you. I could see Denver winning because, I mean, what do you do with Jokic and the ways they can use him? Like, all these pass for Portland, and they still have to deal with every possible way you can use Jokic.
Mm-hmm.
Post up elbow, dribble handoffs, pick and roll, pick and pop, handling the ball and pick and roll, coming off screens, coming off pin downs, flashing to the post, off screen. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, well, does it matter if Jokic scores if no one else does?
Mm-hmm. But
then it's like, well, he's a creator.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's purely based on the double teams. He's a creator. And then it's, do you really want to deal with Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Norman Powell in a first round series with how well they're playing to end the season?
Mm-hmm.
And they actually got some rest going into a series.
Yeah, that would help. Yeah.
Melo, X factor or not?
I mean, yeah, like, he can help drive some of the stuff in the second unit. What's the smirk for?
You're just good for him, Melo?
I don't think it's good for him. Like, he can provide some value as a scorer off the bench. What do you want me to say?
Man said Melo can score points. All right, what's your pick, man? What's your pick?
Okay. I think tentatively, I think I go Denver in 7.
On Portland in 7.
Okay. That sounds about right. Like, I think this is truly a pick 'em. I'm not going to be surprised either way.
No, hashtag big hedge. No big hedge.
How is that
no big hedge this season? Nah.
Wait, time. You can't hit me with hashtag big hedge when, like, 3 minutes ago you were like, I don't have a feel for the series. What does that mean?
Well, I don't have a feel for the series. I have a pick.
Okay.
but I'm a feel for it.
So you are confidently picking Portland in 7.
Here you go. Big trap coming.
Well, I'm asked if it's not a hedge, then surely you are confident with the Portland in 7 pick.
I've already said my pick. I will not get. You will not. We saw you, me. No. No.
All right, fair enough. We'll move on to Clippers Dallas then. Dallas won that season series 2-1. This is a fun one because last year's meeting was fun in the postseason. I love collectively yelling with Clippers Twitter, watching Reggie Jackson defend Luka Doncic for whatever reason. That was a great time for everyone involved. But no, I think this is going to be a fun series. Like, there's so much wing talent between Luka, between Kawhi, between Paul George. Like, I largely anticipate these guys to defend the same way. Like, I think it's going to be a lot of switching 1 through 4. So I'm curious to see, like, I kind of start here in terms of the switching. Like, how physical is Dallas going to be with their switching? Because when it's a soft switch, even and just going through the regular season matchups, this is even without Rondo, who, as I mentioned on the early part, like, he's added some value as a guy that can hit guys on slips and just kind of fit those tight window passes. Even before then, just going through some of the earlier matchups, when the Mavericks were switching without, it was kind of like a soft switch and automatic without any kind of physicality, the Clippers were able to find some slips then. But when they were able to kind of go under a little bit, get a body on the guy, keep things in front that way, and it's a natural switch, then it's the Clippers playing one-on-one. Then it's the Clippers getting jumper heavy. And then Dallas, who doesn't have like elite defensive personnel, they were able to force the Clippers into some contested looks. And then they were able to play the possession game the other way. So I think it starts there for Dallas. Like, they can't just switch to keep the ball in front. They have to be physical with those switches so you don't have those pockets to attack with the pass.
Do you feel that their lineup is better equipped to pull those switches off right now?
That was actually going to be my question to you. Like, I'm not sure who Dallas... Shout out to the pod chemistry. But yeah, like, I'm curious to see who Dallas starts, because I think that's going to determine quite a bit.
Which piece do you think doesn't start? Who do you think does not start?
Like, I guess my major question is, like, I know they're going to have Luka, they're going to have KP. Like, Dorian Finney-Smith's going to be out there. Josh Richardson is going to be out there, I would imagine. Like, I just didn't know if they were going to go... I'm not sure if they go Tim Hardaway Jr. or who the other piece is going to be. Like, is it Maxey? Because, like, there was also the KP Maxey start in one of the matchups. Like, I just didn't know how big or small they wanted to go to kind of fill it out around Luka and KP.
It's a really interesting deal because they can go different directions. You would think, in a nutshell, if you go Finney-Smith, Hardaway, Richardson, KP, and Luka, give yourself a chance on both ends of the floor. But then you might see Kleber in there instead of Tim Hardaway Jr. Maybe you go defense. That'll be interesting. I'm curious to see that portion. Who would you go with?
I kind of lean towards Kleber, honestly. Like, just going through the film, like, he very quietly did a good job on Kawhi in that matchup. And, like, that's, if you can get him to just keep things in front, like, again, Kawhi Leonard is one of the best players in the NBA. So sometimes he's just going to hit contested looks over you. But if you're able to just consistently force him into those contested looks, like, I think that's all you can ask for. And if Cleveland can do that, add some size to you, give you a roll threat and a pop threat alongside KP, that gives you a little bit more diversity offensively. You can do that. And then once the bench comes in, if you have Brunson and Hardaway Jr. on your bench, you give yourself a shot when you're resting one of KP or Luka. And maybe that's where, if the Clippers get the edge in the starting lineup, that's where you make up that difference. You make that run with that second unit.
Okay. I feel like in this series, you kind of almost have to have Finney-Smith and Richardson start just against Kawhi and Paul George and have some version of switchability there. How do you feel about Porzingis and pick and roll?
On which end of the floor?
Defensively to start.
The film was inconsistent when I went back through it. Like, I think it's very clear that he's more comfortable in a drop, but then Dallas did also switch him sometimes, and sometimes it was fine because that is a lot of arm, and other times it's messy footwork. And the Clippers don't necessarily have like elite ball handlers or super fast dudes, but like if you're 7'3" and gangly and your feet kind of get crossed, you're able to get to the rim. And if Kristaps isn't at the rim for you, who's at the rim for you? So I think that's going to be something that the Clippers are going to aim to attack just to see where he's at. Like, if they are going to switch, I think if they're going to switch KP at all, that means they're going to be switching a lot easier elsewhere. And I think the Clippers will be able to manipulate some matchups from there.
What do you think is the one thing that Dallas is missing to up the belief in what they can do in this series?
I think loosely they are a wing short to me, because you mentioned they have to start Josh Richardson and Dorian Finney-Smith for Kawhi and PG, which is very true. Neither of those guys, both of those guys are like a tier or two below stopper. They're good defenders, but they're not that. So that's already kind of something that the Clippers, I think they're going to go into the series feeling okay about. On top of that, Josh Richardson has not had a very good offensive season. That's, him being a streaky shooter in general. That's also the COVID kind of messing with his rhythm, all that stuff. But like in a vacuum, like it hasn't been a great offensive season for him. Dorian Finney-Smith, who is shooting very well from three over the past like month and a half or so, teams don't guard him like a spacer. The Clippers are they are fine with parking Zubac on Dorian Finney-Smith and just letting him camp around the basket and roam and help elsewhere. And just like, hey, if he's going to hit 4 corner threes, good job, buddy. You beat us. But like, they just don't care about him like that. So Dorian's going to have to make them pay, because if he can't, then it's going to be I think it's going to be a lot more Cleveland, or it's going to be more Hardaway Jr. just to juice the offense a little bit. And if it's either of those two, if it's Kleber, it's kind of a similar deal. Like, they're going to let him shoot. And with Hardaway Jr., like, he's just a worse defender than Kleber or Dorian Finney-Smith. And that's just going to be another thing for the Clippers to attack.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Dallas is just missing just that one piece. Could be a shooter, could be a scorer, could be a playmaker. Like, their guys can play, they're playing well, but it just feels like kind of the series where they miss that next pressure point to get to drive and kick, to make the defense pay. And I feel like it has to be Richardson and Tim Hardaway Jr. going. Like, you need Josh Richardson to be a threat, to be able to make some of those plays, to make some shots, to attack some closeouts. You need Tim Hardaway Jr. to be a guy who can get a handoff, come off a screen, be a threat that way. Just opens up things up there. Now, it's interesting you mentioned how the Clippers would treat Finney-Smith, because in some of the film I watched, the Clippers actually would put Paul George on Luka, Kawhi on Porzingis, and Zubac on DFS, which basically makes the Luka Porzingis pick and roll a switch, which takes away that ability to stir the drink. Now, I don't know how much they'll do it to start, but it's something that's out there, because the tough part about the Luka KP deal is you don't know if KP is going to roll, you don't know if he's going to pop, and you don't know how Luka's going to lead that dance. If it's a switch, it becomes a little bit easier to swallow in a sense. And then the other thing the Clippers did, and this goes back, I think, to the playoffs last year, Zubac with his late switch. So he's in a drop, Luka will come off. If it's a pop or whoever it is, they'll just release. Instead of chasing Luka and staying on his hip, they'll release, and now it's Zubac in the switch one-on-one against Luka. How much they do that, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it. And the key is, does Dallas have the roster and the movement to be able to get to drive and kick like they did last time they played the Clippers in the playoffs?
Just to get your thoughts because he hasn't played much. Where do you see Serge Ibaka making an impact in the series?
Well, I think he can have a big impact if Zubac, for whatever reason, is getting beat, getting hurt, late switch not working. You have someone who could purely switch. And then you have someone on the other end who could stretch the floor and space as a big. So I think he's a guy who helps change things on both ends, helps change what the Clippers can do. And I think that's where he'll be his impact. It's almost a good thing for the Clippers that they were able to get Zubac as the starter, get these minutes, but still have Ibaka to make those shifts that they were trying to make, because they're really good when Serge is in there. And that's another body you can throw at Luka in the switch. They got about 7-8 options, honestly.
Who is your X factor for the Clippers? Would it be Serge or would it be someone else?
Reggie Jackson. No, it's not. It's Marcus Morris Sr.
it just can't be Marcus Morris Sr. time when Kawhi and PG are on the floor.
I think because if they want to go small, he's a big part of it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like his offense, his ability to hit those threes, his ability to post up and punish maybe some of those mismatches, those shots are kind of like daggers. Like, I know no one likes them, but
yeah,
those shots are like body blows. And over a course of time, you weren't anticipating those to continue to show up, and they continue to show up. So I think his offense is an X factor. And then I won't even go Rondo. I'll just I'll keep it Marcus Morris Sr.
That's fair. I had Rondo down in my notes because, again, with
what
I had him in my notes. Like, he wasn't a part of this regular season series. But again, with the way that Dallas liked to switch against the Clippers 1-4, like, I think Rondo could play a big part in kind of, throwing some tight window passes to kind of loosen up Dallas's defense a little bit.
Are you okay?
What?
Are you good?
I'm doing all right.
Just making sure. All right.
Like, I see the path to Rondo providing some value as a passer. So that's kind of what I wanted. Where are you on the Clippers' late game offense at this point?
I mean, it's the same issue. What are they going to run? Are they actually going to move the ball? Or are they going to just settle for ISOs and one pick and roll and post ups? I mean, it's really the same problem they have in general. Are they going to move the ball enough to have what the work they put in pay off, or are they going to do that early, make a bunch of shots, and then stagnate, and now they're in a dogfight? Because you don't want to do that against Dallas. I will say that. You don't want to do that against Dallas. Do you think they'll keep the movement offensively, or do you think they'll bog down?
I would imagine, again, like, I anticipate the Clippers, the Mavericks switching late. So, like, it probably does bog down a little bit. But again, like, I think that's where, if Reggie Jackson's playing well, I think it give him a little bit more juice downhill. And if it's Rondo, then again, I think the passing ability can help. You can help them direct traffic a little bit. And then if it's the pick and roll they're trying to switch, I think Rondo has the passing ability to kind of loosen some things up that way. So I do think they have some pathways there. Would like to see them get into their actions a little bit earlier, just to avoid that bogging down. Gives them a little bit more time to go to counters if they need to. But I would just say they have pathways to being successful.
Well, here's a question for you.
Okay.
Are we sleeping on Nick Batum's potential impact in this series?
I guess, yeah, in the sense that we haven't talked about him yet. But no, on a serious note, I mean, I don't think anyone anticipates him being bad or anything. Like, I do think if the Clippers want to go small, like, he has obvious value as a shooter, as a ball mover, just as a spacer in general, a guy that knows how to move off the ball. So if the Clippers are able to get the Mavericks in rotation again, like, I anticipate them switching a lot 1-4. I don't think they want to switch the fives like that, whether it be Willie Cauley-Stein off the bench or if it's KP at the 5 or whatever. if the Clippers are able to get downhill and force some rotations, then Nick Batum can absolutely beat closeouts or just kind of, if one of the Dallas defenders are kind of caught defending two on the weak side, he can absolutely space, or he's more than willing to set like a hammer screen for someone that flows behind him. So he absolutely can be a guy that just makes some back-breaking plays for the Clippers.
Do you feel like the Clippers have too many options lineup-wise in this series?
No, not really. And also, I think they're just kind of better than Dallas anyway. So I don't think they're going to have to overthink it.
So you got no shot for Dallas. No Luka, no Carlisle.
I mean, I don't want to disrespect them because I mean, even last season, I think Luka legitimately struck some fear into the heart of the Clippers. And like, if KP doesn't go down, like that very well could have been like a 6-7 game series. Like that wouldn't have surprised me at all. I still would have picked the Clippers to win that series, just because I think there was a talent deficit there. But yeah, if we pod like 2 weeks from now and the Mavericks are in the second round, like I'm not going to be fall off my couch shocked about it, because I think Luka can absolutely go Nova. KP can provide some issues as a popper or a roller. He's quietly been better at post ups this year. So like there are ways to do it, but I think the Clippers are just a better team. They do have more high end talent, and they do have a lot of options to counter what Dallas wants to do. So I'm still going to pick the Clippers in this series.
Okay. What's the biggest way or the best way that Luka can impact the game offensively?
It's going to be as a driver first. Like I think he's going to have to pressure the Clippers because he can get to the step back whenever he wants to. It really doesn't matter. Even if they run that KP pick and roll, you have Kawhi and PG switching it. Like Luka can just get to that shot. If he's able to drive, get to the free throw line, or drive and force some rotations, or even drive and get successful to the point to where the Clippers feel like they have to send two to the ball, that's opening up corner skips. And like the Clippers are already going to be leaving one guy in the corner already, because they're not going to really, I don't anticipate them caring about Dorian Finney-Smith in the corner like that. So if they're able to find like some catch and shoot opportunities elsewhere in addition to that, then maybe their guys catch a rhythm. And if they shoot well, they're playing half court basketball on the other end. You kind of switch, keep things in front against the Clippers, and then you start to see a more clear path to them pulling off an upset, in my opinion.
I think the playmaking that Paul George and Kawhi have added, I'm very interested to see how that translates to the playoffs, especially with PG having the ball in his hands a little bit more, what he can do in pick and roll with how Dallas is going to defend him, and the plays that he can create if they start coming up a little bit higher. And then Kawhi not only just scoring, making those tough baskets, but you never know. There's no tell really on if he's just winding up to do something that he normally does, or if he's going to kick out, hit the open man, wait for the double, and make those kind of plays. So it feels like one of those times where the Clippers have made the necessary steps and changes to potentially overcome Dallas. I got a question for you, though.
Okay.
Who's more likely to have an impact on this series, JJ Redick or Luke Kennard?
Oh, Jesus.
I'm on a heater.
That's, oh man. I guess it's Redick. Just because
you don't feel good about it, do you?
I don't feel good about it. No. Like, I don't think the Clippers are going to need Luke. And I could definitely see a scenario in which the Mavericks just need the movement shooting to kind of loosen some things up offensively. And Redick has the playoff pedigree. And even if he finds himself playing some minutes with Luka, like I think that'll be a way for them to kind of invite some inverted pick and rolls and let Luka mismatch hunt a little bit. Redick's been screening for wing initiators for quite a long time. So I see it more for Redick than I do for Luke. It's less about Luke as a talent. It's just that the Clippers have so much talent elsewhere. And like I can see where the Mavericks may say, okay, we're down. Let's search for something that can give us a little bit more juice. And Redick can be that option.
More likely to win a game in this series, Trey Burke or Reggie Jackson?
I'm going to go with Reggie.
Wow, we have Reggie Jackson and Rajon Rondo praise, folks. We have come a long way here on the Dunker Spot episode. What is this, 25? It's proud of you, man. That's growth.
Took a long time.
Growth. I think Dallas can put a scare in the Clippers. I just don't know if they're going to have enough guys offensively.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Clippers will self-destruct in the same way they have before. I don't think they'll have the same exploits either because of the multiple lineups they can go to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where they can stay big, they can go small, they can go different kinds of small, put different guys on different guys. And I think the mindset to move the ball, I'm going to go with Clippers.
I feel you. I'm right there with you. I'll go Clippers in 6.
Clippers in 6, huh?
I'll go Clippers in 6.
Well, Clippers in 7. I'm gonna put some respect on Luka.
Okay.
I think he's gonna I think he's still gonna have a huge series. The only question is, can Dallas get enough going?
Yeah, they just need the others to step up.
Because I mean, if you told me Clippers in 5, I'd be like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I just like Dallas has to get to drive and kick, because that to me is the Clippers' Achilles heel a little bit. You get them moving, you attack those closeouts, you can still find those gaps, but I just don't know if it's going to end in the right person's hand, or if that skip is going to result in another drive. Those kind of things.
Right.
So where I don't know if Dallas can bridge it like they should, but I know Luka's gonna try his best.
Oh, absolutely. All right, we'll close out here. We know that the Utah Jazz are the 1 seed in the West. We were recording late on a Thursday night, so we don't know who their opponent's going to be. We know it's either going to be Golden State or it's going to be Memphis. So we'll leave this. I'll ask this broadly, since we're going to talk about this a little bit more during the Twitter space on Friday once we have the matchup solidified.
The what? Once we have the matchup solidified, when's that game start? Hold on, man.
The game starts at 9 Eastern.
Oh man, you better start that Twitter space at 10:30.
Well, hopefully we have a feel of what it's going to be then. But at either rate, we will go deeper into whatever that series is going to be on Friday night. But for now, I'll just ask 2 vague questions. If the Golden State Warriors beat the Memphis Grizzlies on Friday night and they get Utah, what is their path to beating Utah?
Draymond Green playing the 5 and Steph Curry losing his mind. Forcing turnovers. Wiggins plays well. It's a tricky matchup.
It is, in fact, a tricky matchup. Like, I would just be eyeing to that point when Golden State goes small, that Steph Dre pick and roll against Rudy Gobert in particular. Because, I mean, we've been talking all year long about Rudy Gobert in that drop and Rudy Gobert being more comfortable in space, being more comfortable against switches or those late switches and holding his own there. And Steph Curry is just a different breed entirely as a perimeter player in space. So how the Utah Jazz are able to navigate that pick and roll is going to say a lot about how that series would go. I'm curious about what the Steph matchup would be. First and foremost, like, is that going to be Mike Conley chasing Steph around? Because that's a tough matchup. Is it Royce O'Neal, who might be their best perimeter defender, but I don't think he's an elite chase guy. Like, he's a guy you stash on one of those power wings and defend that way. If you have him running around chasing Steph, that will probably open up some things elsewhere. So I think the pathway there is just, you have to abuse Rudy in the drop somehow. If that's running higher pick and rolls than doing that, if it's just clearing aside and running some handoffs and some handbacks and kind of getting Rudy in space and beating him that way and forcing Utah to rotate behind that, I think that's the path. I think the NBA would love to see that series.
Whoa. You and Nate McMillan got to relax.
What you? They're not finding me. So,
they're going to find you. That's what they're going to do.
Oh, man. Same question for Memphis. What is their path to beating Utah, if you can see it?
I'm going to do some digging tomorrow, but during the last time they played, they lost, or Utah beat them 3 times in 5 days.
Yeah. Like, I just struggle to find the offensive path because, again, going back to the regular season, like Memphis has been floater city. And so, like, the shots that they have been most, I guess, maybe not efficient, but most proficient on are the shots that Utah wants to give up anyway. So, I mean, I guess technically, if you just make enough of those and Utah doesn't have the 3-ball going, then sure, there's your path. But, like, consistently, like, I don't trust Ja's a playoff level pull-up shooter yet, and that's a problem. And if you have him attacking Rudy Gobert of all people in the drop, and he doesn't have a pull-up as a real counter, then that can be a problem. And behind Ja, who's creating for you?
I think Memphis could compete. I think it'd be a fun series. And Ja had a couple decent games against them, so I'm going to take a couple looks at that film, but I just don't think they'll have enough. Because, I mean, if we talk about Rudy Gobert's impact, if you're looking at guards in the playoffs, he may feel he might have the most impact on this one. So, I mean, with Utah's play style, with them getting healthy, Memphis would have to play not only really good defense, but also score continuously. Like, they can't have those stretches. You know, some of those stretches will be a 9-0 run, how Utah runs out on the other end. So I will look to correct and improve on the, what's it called?
Oh, the Twitter space.
That's not what Twitter space is.
It's this is incredible old man energy, I must say.
Do you open that on the computer or do you go to this thingy?
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Thank you for listening to part 2 of our playoff preview here at the Dunker Spot. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. We are on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on Google, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever you get your podcast. I'm your host, Nekias Duncan. You can find me at Nekias NBA on Twitter. You can find Steve Jones Jr. at Steve Jones 20. And with that, we will catch y'all Friday night on the Twitter Spaces, assuming that Steve figures out what that is. And in terms of the podcast, we will catch y'all later.